Welcome to the reLeading podcast. I'm Kim Allen. I'm really glad that you joined us today. This is where people come to change things in their lives, whether it's professional or personal on their journey. And the trick is that people need to pause. So some people don't pause, and then some people do pause, but that's all they do, and you're doing it wrong. You have to pause and then pivot, because we all have to acquiesce to our personal or our professional journeys, because everything is changing. The world is changing. That way we can proceed with a different kind of purpose. That's the win. So I'm really excited today because I have yet another episode from my Fabulous Women series. And I will tell you, I got goosebumps. We have such a great guest today. I'm so excited. She's a really, really amazing woman. I want everyone to meet Sarah Bateman. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, Kim. You've got such an introduction. Thank you so much.
Sarah is a podcast that I was so excited, like Christmas Eve waiting for Santa, because she and I have known Sarah, and she and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago that I should have recorded, but it's going to be duplicated today. So you all are going to get something really interesting because I don't know about you, but I don't like chaos. And Sarah Bateman has somehow made chaos normal in her life. And what happened since we spoke 2 weeks ago, she's changed how I think. So I'm one that encourages people and motivates people and inspires people. And Sarah Bateman has done that for me. Oh, and Sarah, by the way, I have something to share with you. That her initials are SB for Sarah Bateman, but I've actually changed her last name because she's now officially Sarah BOSSWOMAN. So Sarah BOSSWOMAN. So, all right. Sarah, if it's okay with you, I just want to set the stage and let our audience know a little bit about you, and then we're going to have a little bit of fun, and then we're going to get into it. So does that work for you?
Sounds good, Kim.
All right. So I looked at your background, which I thought, I didn't know this about you. I thought it was so interesting that you initially started out as a news anchor and a personality. That's so cool. I wish I did that. I love that about you.
You could have done that, Kim.
I know, right? I should be doing it now.
Yes.
I said agents calling me. All right. So also you were a senior political reporter, which is really, really awesome. I like that too, right? That's like beauty and brains. Okay. So also when I'm looking at your work history, that you've had multiple leadership roles leading up to your current senior leadership role with Comcast, you are now considered senior leadership in your new director role of sales enablement. So major congratulations to you, Sarah. I know that's well-deserved. Very proud of you.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. So, you know what? I always have to humanize my guests because everyone kind of gets caught up in like what they, not you, but the audience, like, oh my gosh, they're great. They're this or that. They're high-level leaders. But you know what? We just have to keep it human. So I have a fun question for you. All right.
Okay.
So Sarah Bateman, you are driving in your car alone, and your favorite song comes on the radio and you start to sing it loudly. What song is that?
Oh, gosh. Well, I am, first of all, thank you for having me on this show. And I just want everyone to know I was not prepared with these questions, so this is going to be fun. I'm first of all definitely that girl who's singing in the car. I don't care. I can be in the middle of Boston driving in traffic, and I'm going to do it. My kids will tell you I'll do it, so I have no shame at all. I'll embarrass them. So as a Gen Xer, I would say it's either going to be some kind of like 90s hip hop song. So we're going to go like Notorious B.I.G., something like that, maybe like Rob Bass. Possibly we could be also going into maybe some grunge music. So, if like Nirvana's playing, if I'm in that type of mood. And those are definitely the songs like from my generation. So like I know every single word with a blindfold on. And you can't not sing those, Kim. Like you can't. If you're me, you can't not sing it. So there you go.
So do you also dance when you're driving? You know what I'm talking about?
Maybe a little bit. Gotta be safe. But yeah, I mean, like it's really hard not to move a little bit. So I'll tap the steering wheel. Yeah. Maybe do little air drums. Yeah.
I love that. All right. So let me ask the question, but just change one thing. If you were listening to your playlist, what song would you put on? Same thing, same kind of music?
Yeah, music is such an important part of my life. I'm a runner, so I also like music is really important to like me. Like when I'm heading out on a run, it
Right.
has to match my mood. Sometimes I don't want like loud pumping, dance music playing. Maybe I want something a little more mellow. So like mood is a big part of me choosing
Right.
music. But honestly, like a lot of times when I'm driving and what I put on, I'm listening to and I don't even know if I could name like an artist, but I'm listening to a lot of like alternative EDM type music, just like really chill, something that I can just kind of relax, kind of get, lost in my thoughts with. But yes, there's absolutely times where if I need to pump myself up, I'm listening to like Rush, Tom Sawyer, like Metallica.
Wow, look at you
Oh
being
yeah, I could go either
a
way.
headbanger.
Wu-Tang Clan, like Wu-Tang, like I'm gonna put that on. Sure,
Love it.
absolutely. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you're awesome. You're a really super awesome chick. All right. Well, now we know everything about you, so we can
I
and
know.
that's not true.
I'll
We've got
share my
going on.
playlist if anybody wants it. You'll see it's crazy. It's all over the place.
Okay. Well, I want it. All right. So now we're going to begin because we just found out so many really great things about Sarah, about her gifts and her talents that she has. But the topic that we're going to talk about now, chaos is normal. The reason why I'm so blown away by that is because I've never met anyone that really talks about chaos and never ever uses the word chaos and normal in the same sentence. So my first question, which is really going to open up the entire podcast, Sarah, is what happened in your life that allowed chaos to be your normal?
Mm. Well, so I'll also talk just for a second about
Okay.
how we connected a couple of weeks ago, and I knew that you had this idea for doing a podcast and having me on the podcast, and in my typical fashion, I kind of started to prepare some thoughts, some notes, and everything that was coming out on paper was really just you know focused on how we embrace kind of like how do we deal with stress, how do we get through each day when we're managing multiple priorities, managing from a professional perspective. If you're a parent, you've got children, and so I think this just really one is so timely for where I'm at right now in my life. But I do love your lead up question, like, how did I get here? Because it's really not something, that I've had, and I should, it's a really good one to reflect back on. I think it's important that no matter where you are, if you're wherever you're sitting, wherever you're at, professionally, personally, it's always really important to look back and see how far you've come. So your question is really kind of making me sort of sit here and do that. Um, so I think, how have I gotten to this perspective? Well, first of all, self-inflicted overachiever my whole life, right? So I think that one of the things you have to look at, or for me that I'm looking at, is most of my life where life has always felt very busy, or I've always felt a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. I look back at that now and I realize I put a lot of that on myself because it was never enough for me. And I know a lot of women like this, to just show up and just do what was asked or do enough. So like always wanting to kind of overachieve. I played a lot of sports through high school and early college, and trophies to, I've got the trophies, the MVPs, team captain, like a lot of that stuff. Because for whatever reason, that was just always my drive. That was kind of also how I defined my worth back then, because I didn't really know who I was. There wasn't a lot of, what teenager does anyways, and what, early 20 something year old really, we
Right.
don't think we really start figuring out our identity until we get older, or until we start actually living life. Right. So I think part of it's self-inflicted, and then, when you layer on the work aspect of life, same thing with me and work, just, having to really just drive really hard, everything, every project, always looking around the corner to see like what's the next initiative, what's the next thing that we can fix or drive the improvement around. And so, obviously taking on projects, taking on more responsibilities. And for the majority, I would say the majority of my professional life, I've been a people leader, like you mentioned. So I've had some form of a team. So then taking on the responsibility of others. So that feels stressful. That's a lot, right? Because, anyone who's in that role knows, when you're responsible for, the performance of a team or for the way people feel in their job, you take a
Right.
lot of that on yourself. So I think, most of my life, I've had that going for me. Um, shifting gears, more of it from a personal perspective, and again, we got to get a little personal here, right? Because we could just sit here and talk about what I do, but you wouldn't know anything about who I am if I just talk
Yes,
about what I do,
exactly.
right? And we all have a story, and and I think that's where I think we really get into the meat and potatoes of how chaos for me became normal, because a couple of things happened in my life which I know are not unfamiliar to some, but went through a difficult divorce, mother of two wonderful boys, amazing boys, and in the beginning of that, I did a lot as a single mom. There were days as a single mom, young kids, working at the time. I was working in Boston. I was taking public transportation into work. So there's a lot of like lack of like feeling of like no control there. Like if you have to
Yes.
hop in the car and get back to a school or something, hiring people to take care of your kids. That was at the time chaos, crazy,
Right.
And also still trying to maintain that same level of performance and drive in my professional career. I would like to put a plug in and say I have an amazingly supportive partner today. So, thank God for that. And we all need that. But, at that time, it was just, really crazy. The other part of that is, and again, I think some of this might be relatable, but I will say for myself, I didn't know how to handle all of the stress and the chaos. And especially when you come home from a crazy day, like I work in sales, right? I've always been in some form of a sales job. When you get home and these kids need you, and trying to switch gears, and all you want to do is just maybe collapse on the couch,
Right.
is what I started doing was, turning to, hey, let's have a glass of wine when I come home, and that glass of wine for me turned into really self-medicating. So that was like one glass of wine, two glasses of wine, maybe I'll drink a bottle of wine. And then I found out that this whole like wine mommy culture thing was actually kind of popular and cool. So I embraced
Right.
that, it
Of
really
course.
is. Right. And by the way, I'm not knocking it. I totally think it's to each his own, right? But for me, I wasn't actually really getting any type of foundational skills to handle stress, because I was just coming home and just pouring the glass of wine, and that was the only thing that was giving me like the juice to keep going for second shift. We call that second shift, dealing with the kids and fixing dinner and getting them to bed. And then the next morning you got to get up, you got to get into school, it was crazy. Um, and then just to fast forward, and I know you didn't go through all the list of places that I worked on my resume, but I think it's worth noting that the place that I worked prior to my current role today, very, very popular electric vehicle manufacturer, I'll say, that's been in the news a lot lately. I'll just leave it at that and let the audience guess who that might be. But I was working probably, oh my gosh, again, young kids, driving back and forth. It was take me about an hour and a half, hour, 45 minutes to get into that job. I was probably with my commute logging 75, 80 hours a week. And just to put it into perspective, Kim,
Right.
and I was thinking about this story, and I'm like, I should share this story. I've never shared this story, by the way, with anybody. The only person I think who knows this is my partner. I was so physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually drained that I was driving home one night after just another crazy day, probably 12 or 14-hour workday, and I ran out of gas on the side of the street on the road coming
No.
home. Yeah.
Oh,
Like that's how, that was like just total like crash. Not, I didn't crash and burn, but just mental.
yes.
And you go, oh my, and I remember sitting there thinking, what are you doing? Like, how did you let that happen? You know what I mean? Like, and it probably sounds crazy. It sounds crazy to me now, but that was how much I allowed everything to just dictate my life, to the point where like I was
Right.
that exhausted. So fast forward a little bit, I finally came to the conclusion that coming home drinking wine wasn't the answer for me. It couldn't be the answer. I didn't like who I saw in the mirror anymore, and like how I felt the next day. And so I made a pretty big decision in my life to just say, you know what, I can't do that. Like, I don't know what I'm afraid to not do that. Like, like I felt nothing more vulnerable than like feeling
Right.
your feelings. God forbid you feel something.
Right.
But I knew I needed to. Like, I knew that like I had like these two paths that I saw. And I was like, this one just doesn't look like it's going anyplace good anytime soon. It actually looks like it's getting a lot worse. the other path, I was like, I don't really know what's on this one, but I know that I need to make a change. So I did, and for me, and that again, personal decision on my part, like, what others choose to do is totally up to them, but I needed to get my head clear. So, no more wine. um, and that was really, I think, the beginning of what has been just a very beautiful journey of accepting life on life's terms and really dealing with life as it comes. So to answer that, go back to answering your question, like what happened in my life to make chaos normal? It wasn't so much that life changed. It was that I changed and how I react to life, how I respond to life. And I know that's not necessarily like a new concept, how we react to life, but it really is
Right.
such a stark contrast when I finally made the admission that I wanted to deal with life. I wanted to get stronger and get the ability to get through life versus running away from it. So yeah, so I think that's how I got there, and a whole lot more in between.
It's interesting when I go back over our conversation, because I took a lot of notes. You were talking about something that you basically were building your own brand, even in work situations. And I love that about you, because everything that we discuss has everything to do with you taking initiative, hard initiative, right? And also that you set a different bar for yourself. In so many ways, Sarah, you remind me of me. You just do it. You get to that, you're going down the road and there's a fork in the road and you take it. And no one's giving you permission to do anything. You're just doing it, taking that initiative. And that's something I've always had, the fire in my belly. I think I fell from my mother's loins like that, just like came out like a fighter, if you will, right? I don't know. I don't know what it was like to raise me. I have no idea. But anyway, I really do like that about you. And what I wrote down is that something I wrote down that was interesting, that you were on your way, because you were giving me a lot of examples, in your personal life, children, parents, and, working crazy long days. And yeah, and I just felt like, oh, she was on her way so long ago, but yet you're still on your way. You're still on your way, and you're rising to really high places, not just in your job. I mean, your SLT, your senior leadership, right? Of a Fortune 30 organization, but you're also rising to the occasion with other things going on in your life. Like you mentioned that you're a runner and you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to run. 5 o'clock in the morning for me is the middle of the night. Okay. I can't relate to any part of that. I love that you do it though. I'm telling you, like, I need to vote for you for something, but again, you take initiatives that I think a lot of us take for granted. I wouldn't get up 5 o'clock in the morning. I just wouldn't do it, right? Because I'm not that person. But you make yourself that person. You just do it.
The payoff is really good for me, it's really about finding balance. So I
Right.
know I talked kind of about like what kind of got me up to a certain point, but just to kind of backtrack a little bit, because I know what you're talking about today, just to kind of bring us to present, I two teenage boys now. They're not little kids anymore, so I'm raising two teenage boys. I
Right.
have a senior dad, early dementia, living at home with me, 84. Obviously a job I absolutely love. I'm so grateful, and I love what the work I do, and I work with some amazing people, but it's like any job, it's busy, there's always something new and something going on there. But so for me, Ken, like I have to find, like, this is kind of, I've got some notes here on the right, like so important that we schedule and we have time to give to ourselves. I do much better work personally if I give myself a runway in the morning. I have to get up at 5. Like I'm up at 5, I get my coffee. Like a lot of us, I probably pick my phone up, I kind of just zone out for a minute, but then I'm like, okay, now let's get centered. That run for me in the morning is a way to connect to nature. It's a way to connect to, like
Yes.
the universe, set my intentions for the day. I get out there with my dog. I get to spend a little time with my dog. And then that just makes the day go smoother,
Right. Right.
which is so important, which again, it goes back to how do we embrace chaos? Well, first you have to be able to, like, you got to give yourself fuel for the day. We get up in the morning, we only have so much energy on any given day, and it's not going to be the same on every day.
Right.
Every day we cannot have
Right.
the same level of energy every day. Like we get what we get, and we got to be very mindful about how we use it.
Yeah, you're right. And so I'm going to share with the audience some Sarah Bosswoman isms, okay? Because some of the stuff is like, okay, so you talk about, all right, so you talked about, this is crazy. Again, chaos is my normal. How to embrace the chaos. And you said, I actually laugh when I'm saying this because it's so bonkers. Because I don't know, I would never even think about these words. And if I could get these words tattooed on my forearm, honey, I'm doing it. Okay, because you said how to repel stress during the day. How to repel stress? I never thought about repelling it, right? I run from it. I mean, I try to, right? But and then because I wrote here, like, who thinks like that? Sarah Bosswoman does. So again, you talk about embracing the stress. Please explain that to me because I'm going to have to write a book about this now. I mean,
I did. No, that was actually, that was on my original notes when, I was thinking about what did I want to talk about. And well, so again, it goes back to, how are you going to structure your day and what are you giving yourself as, protection and almost armor as you go into the
yeah,
day to repel the stress. Well, I'd like to first start by saying, and again, I don't take credit for all of these ideas because I think we get some of the best stuff. We steal it from all over the place, different people. But the first thing for me, I need to, I did this a couple of years ago. Stop labeling your day. Like
yeah,
stop labeling things as crazy, busy, oh my God, it's chaos. Listen, I will give anyone permission to say that just because it's good for us to vent and then move on. But like, don't believe it. Like, if that makes sense. Because,
yes,
those words might slip out of my mouth too. I mean, that's just normal human. Like, that's what we say to each other, right? Like, oh my God, this week, crazy, busy. But, truly, like, try not to. Like, I actually just, I had a leader one time actually had made a big impression on me who's just like, that's just like Tuesday, you know? And I
wow,
really started thinking about that. And I was like, if every day is this way, meetings, 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 kids, this, trying to get whatever done, food on the table and, all this stuff. If every day is like that, then is that really chaos or is that just normal? Is that just normal? Is that just the way? Is it me that needs to rise and meet the day and the chaos? Or
yes,
am I somehow have this fictitious expectation, this delusion that somehow life was never meant to be this way? Like I think we're told, or maybe somewhere along the line when we're growing up, like life is just supposed to be happy, and not that
yeah,
it's not, but like easy going, vacations, like all that stuff. We get to enjoy those things in life. But when we're constantly setting an expectation that life should be somehow different,
right,
then we're like setting ourselves up for disappointment basically every
right,
day, which is kind of like back to my like, go home, pour a glass of wine, this is so crazy. Like, when you stop, at least for me, when I stopped labeling everything that way and I said, okay, hold on a second, I gotta, I gotta readjust how I go into my day now.
yes,
And the second part of that is there's tons of tools, there's tactics, there's tools that I sort of just, I guess I've picked up along the years
right,
that I employ throughout the day to kind of keep myself, in that same mindset. Because it can be very easy for things to get out of control. And all of a sudden you're like, sitting in the middle of your day, just like, that doesn't have to happen either. But I also give anyone permission to start their day over anytime they need to, if it does,
yeah. No, I
just
like that.
start over.
No, I
Yeah.
like that. I still have to go back to repelling stress because, I guess in some ways I do that myself. I guess I never labeled it like that because the only thing I repel every day is like, putting on my makeup and doing my hair to repel the ugly. I mean, like I wake up in my hair, I look like a rooster. I mean, if anyone saw me in the morning, oh my God, right? I need to repel everything. But you're so correct in what you're saying. When you talked about embracing the stress, Sarah, you had said something very interesting that society encourages it. You said that being negative gives chaos power, right? I think
Hmm.
I'm just gonna like tattoo all this in my forearm because it's like my new way of living. And then also, what if it? You did say that. What if it is the way that is supposed to be. And you talked about acceptance. And the way that we do that is, again, we give things negative titles, but maybe, right? Because I mean, if you look in Facebook or Instagram, everything is about like happy, kind, sweet, love, oceans,
Right.
and I'm thinking to myself, what world does everyone live in? Because I just don't think that's real. I think chaos is part of our life. And
It is.
right. And there's no playbook. I mean, I don't know. Did someone give you a playbook recently? I am the playbook. I am a walking playbook. I'm an executive coach and a leadership advisor, but I had to create that because no one gave that to me. Right. So when you're thinking about, again, labeling things, or we have to stop looking at the how everything is perfect, because so much in life is not perfect. But I'm not sure that we know really what the rules are and how we're going to acquiesce to that. And somehow you have figured that out, Sarah, boss woman.
Well, I liked I'm going to go back to what you said about the playbook piece, because nobody does give you a playbook.
No.
Right? Here's what we have. We have experience. We have the ability to learn from mistakes, hard times. We can watch others. We can learn from that. Basically, our whole life kind of we start to write our own playbook. And then here's the most important part for me. We got to share that playbook.
Yes.
Because to your point,
yes.
And my playbook's different than your playbook, Kim. I
Yes.
love I need your playbook and you might need mine, because
yes.
we're gonna help to give each other things that we may not have learned at this point. Like
Exactly.
there might be some lesson or something that I need to hear, and I'm going to hear it from somebody else. Like I can't
Yes.
sit here and solve everything all on my own. I can only own what has happened to me and in my life, and what I have through trial and error, found works for me. Like, listen, you don't have to get up at 5 a.m. and go for a run. I do.
Right.
Right. I do, and if it helps you, and if you want to do that, if it works for you, great. There's a lot of things, that I enjoy doing, like that may work for you, may not, but like we need to share our playbooks with one another. I think that's it's a really good call out. And then back to that, like negative piece of like feeding negative energy, feeding negative thoughts, and even labeling things as negative in our lives. Like I've read tons of articles, and I'm sure others have, but our brain believes what we tell it. Like words matter, especially the words that we tell ourselves and what we tell, what we think life should be. Right.
Right.
So, like, I'm sure we've all met people that tend to be like more negative or just complain, like life is kind of like half glass empty, that type of thought. And, well, if that works for you, like, I'm not going to judge you. I don't judge people, but I can't live that way. You know what I mean? So to your point, that like fire in the belly is, if I don't like the way I feel, I have to participate in my own rescue.
Absolutely.
Right? I have to figure out then, like, what's my next tool? What's my next move to make the change? And if I don't want to make the change, well, that's a choice I can make as well. But then I have to live with that. You know what I mean? So.
Right. Yeah. So people who are listening or watching this right now, do this at home. Sarah, you epitomize the perfect resolution to mindset, to the proper mindset. I'm going to keep reading a couple of the Sarah Bosswoman isms. Okay. We talked about, we set expectations, how our day is going to end. Oh my gosh, that's so true. And then we're disappointed, right? We're disappointed at the end of the day when we've had like a really crappy day. And something else you said, chaos is how we frame it. What is self-inflicted? Maybe we didn't inflict anything on the chaos, but we certainly didn't do anything to solve for it, right? At the end of the day. You also said something. I should write a whole book on Sarah Bosswoman. So anyone who thinks I should do that, raise your hand. Okay. So we talked about that it's not how life adjusts to us. It's how we adjust to life. Okay. That's the tattoo right there. Right there, everyone. I'm getting it right there.
We'll get matching tattoos, Kim. Okay.
You know what? I would do that with you. I would do that with you. Okay. And also some things that you said, and just in case you're not going to say these, I want to say them because you know what? If this is the only time that the audience is going to experience Sarah Bateman, I want them to know, I want you all to know about some of the great things that she says. And also, Sarah, you got a little fan club going on. I got to read all these people that, oh my gosh, I'm getting like, you have a fan club, girl. Okay. So you talk about our choices contribute to how we define our life. Absolutely. That's in actually both of my books. I believe in that. How do I step up and respond to my day? What? Who does that? Who says that to? If you say that to yourself out loud, I want you to reach out to me because I want to hear about it. No one does that. I get paid and I say to people, how are you going to step up and respond to your day? And they're like, oh my gosh, I never thought about that. Sarah Bateman thinks about these things. Do you expect people, places, and situations to adjust to you? Of course I do. But you know what? That's not good. Right?
You're going to be very disappointed if you expect that, Kim.
I love you. Okay. You also said that you don't get upset, that you don't ruminate, and that if you think if there's a solution, then you don't have to worry about it. You said, you remember saying that?
Yeah, I do. And, this might actually be one of the more, I guess, controversial statements I'll make, and I'm not going to say I'm not human. I get upset. Sure. I mean, I think we have to allow ourselves to feel things, but here's something I don't do. I don't stay upset. I really don't. Like, I really don't.
Right.
And I just don't see the point. I don't see the point. I don't see the point of getting upset over people I can't control, situations I think we can influence. I think we can influence positive outcomes. I think we can influence people positively,
Right.
But at the end of the day, like, it's like, do I stay stuck in a
Right.
past or do I want to move forward? You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Right.
again, it's like, I have a very, very good friend. I don't know if she's watching, but she's famous for saying, you got to protect your energy, and I'm just going to steal her saying, like, we have so much energy during the day. So like, it just takes more effort for me to stay
Right.
upset. So I really don't. Like, I can have my moments, kids, work, dogs, dad. But it feels better to just kind of move past it and focus on a solution.
Okay, so everyone, I'm at 30 minutes. I'm staying on for 10 more minutes. Stay with me. Keep your seatbelt on. We got a couple more things to talk about, and I saved the best for last. So, all right. So do you ever like meet someone, right? This is how I feel now, that here's me and here's Sarah. Like, I just kind of feel like, can she enter my body? And so it's kind of like, it's kind of like, what do you do? The airdrop? I want to airdrop her brain into mine. Okay. You talk about, okay, this is it. Are you it's not funny. It's funny to me because no one thinks like this. And you said it earlier, to wake up with energy in your tank. I have to wake up with an IV from coffee. Okay, so I know
I love coffee too.
Coffee, oh my God, it's my religion. But I'm telling you, you talk about waking up with energy in your tank. Please, universe, let me know how to do that. And number 2, how to divide it out during the day. Best advice ever. Okay. You truly are amazing. Okay. And really the takeaway that from what we talked about recently is it's not what I do, but who I am. So, and don't feed the negative labeling. All right. So real quick, Sarah has a fan club. I'm getting all these responses. Sarah, so exciting. Amazing. Sarah, love you. This is fantastic. Giving to yourself so that we can give to others. Love hearing how you do this. Restarting our days anytime is what can do daily. Great on repelling stress. Thank you. Needed this. Yes. I'm agreeing with Dr. Kim Allen on Sarah. Boss woman. Okay. So I'm giving you a new brand. All right. We're almost done. All right. So really quick. First of all, Sarah Bosswoman Bateman is coming back on again because we've only scratched the surface. So you're going to be a second time guest for me. But I do have a question for you because I can talk to you all day, right?
Okay.
So my question for you is, what advice would you give to the person listening to this podcast who can't solve for chaos in their life? How can they?
Well, I would say, first of all, I think even just having this conversation and speaking from my own experience, I didn't know I needed to solve for anything. So maybe that's the first step, is just accepting that there is something to solve for, that to me was, hey, I don't want to feel this way anymore. Like it's not sustainable. It's hard. It's hard. So, I think just one, acknowledging a problem sort of cuts it in half. you know, and then I would go to the next step would be, you know, what are some of the, maybe just start taking stock of, you know, what is your life right now? Like, what do you do during the day that you feel like is causing the most stress? And I would start with the thing that's the highest and just start working on those, you know, systematically, and just kind of go down the list and see, you know, what part potentially is it self-inflicted, like we talked about.
Right.
Are you labeling a situation that, ps, if that situation, whatever it is in your life, is not changed and it's not changing, then let go of the label.
Mhm.
Change your perspective on it. Embrace it. It is what it is. What can you do to add value? What can you do to make it go smoother? I'm not just talking work. I mean, of course, work's a big part of it, but you know, whether it's like dealing with kids at home, or, you know, dealing maybe personal struggle or something you need to go do and make a change in your life. We have to, at the end of the day, I love that saying that's like the fastest way out is through, you know, so
Yes.
go through it, you know, just go through.
Yes.
I would say if you're not getting the result you want, you got to do something different. You know,
Absolutely.
you got to do something. Yeah, you got to try something maybe that you weren't willing to try. And that's mindset, and mindfulness for me is a big part of it, because I think the last couple of years I've been able to apply certain lessons I've learned to a lot of things. And one of those is that if what I'm doing over and over again is not working,
Right.
it's time to be like, okay, time out. Like,
Right.
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 Um, we don't have to know all the answers. You know, it's
Right.
really important to have a good network and a good people around you that'll also be honest with you and help
Right.
you and help guide you. And that's why I say we've really got, this is why it's so important that we share our stories with one another. Because
Exactly.
you don't know who you're going to help. You know, it could be the silliest thing. You say something and
Yes.
someone is like, oh my God, that's life changing. You know, you're like, oh,
Yes.
okay.
Exactly. That's how I feel when
Yeah.
I talk with you. So, you know, it's interesting because the tagline to the reLeading podcast is pausing and pivoting to proceed with purpose. And that's not just a bunch of work. I thought really long and hard about that, because it's exactly what you're talking. Pausing is, you have to pause, but people sometimes pause and they just want to keep going forward. It's not something you absolutely have to pivot. And you talk about that, that if something is not, you know, you're trying to fix it and it keeps coming back, you've got to redefine it. You've got to pivot in a different direction, right? Because then you're freeing yourself to keep moving forward.
And I love your perspective, Kim. And I want to put a plug in for Kim Allen, Dr. Kim Allen, and her books and her series are life changing as well. And I love your philosophies, Kim. That's why you and I think we just hit it off so well.
Yes.
You've put it into a beautiful structure as an author. Myself, I'm, you know, still kind of defining a lot of stuff, but it's definitely, you know, the way I choose to live too. So
Right. Well, you are truly amazing, Sarah. Sarah Bateman, boss woman, or did I get your middle name backwards? You are a dreamy dreamboat guest, and you're definitely coming back on. I just want to thank you so much for everything that you have shared with me. And now that you shared it with an audience, I have a feeling that that there's going to be a lot of feedback on this podcast because of you. You truly have an amazing mind, and your experiences are just you've taught us what to do with experiences, especially when they're not always positive, right? So what I do at the end of all my podcasts is just to remind people that life is short, but careers are shorter. And it's really incumbent upon anything that you do. If you're going to do anything, just be effective, because that's really what the win is.
love that.
Really, right. And also too, that I want to add to that now, and to follow Sarah Bosswoman Bateman's life advice: avoid disappointments and frame your expectations positively. That's how I'm actually starting my days right now, because of you, Sarah. So I really want to thank you. We're going to see everyone again. Until next time, have a great day.